Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome you to our daily live coverage where we continue to follow the latest developments in a rapidly evolving regional situation, carrying serious political, security, economic, and strategic implications. Today marks 6 months since the conflict began on February 28th, and though hostilities have halted between the two sides, an end to the conflict remains uncertain. Qatar's Prime Minister visited Tehran to continue mediation efforts in hopes to get both sides back to the negotiating table after U.S. President Donald Trump halted talks and launched an unprecedented economic war against Tehran, with hopes of pressuring them to make a deal. Mediators have placed renewed emphasis on reopening the Strait of Hormuz, with Tehran agreeing to drop a list of conditions to restore normal traffic and freedom of navigation. In today's coverage, we will examine the latest events from several key perspectives. Joining me throughout the hour will be political analyst in Washington and our correspondent in London, who will give us the latest updates from their sides. But for now, let's take a look at this report that looks at the 6 months of war and efforts to resolve it.
The war between the United States and Iran enters its 6th month without a decisive military victory or a diplomatic breakthrough capable of ending an increasingly complex and costly confrontation. What U.S. President Donald Trump initially described as a little excursion has evolved into an open-ended conflict. Despite Iran's significant military and economic losses, Tehran has not accepted Washington's demands, while shipping through the Strait of Hormuz remains disrupted, with dozens of incidents reported and casualties among seafarers. After halting military operations, Washington has shifted toward intensified economic pressure through Operation Economic Outcast, targeting Iran's trade and sources of revenue. Diplomatically, Qatar's Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, visited Tehran, calling for renewed dialogue and freedom of navigation. The talks also addressed a proposal to establish a joint Iranian-Omani shipping corridor and conduct joint mining clearing operations. However, the two sides remain far apart, as Washington is demanding guarantees for the security of the strait and restrictions on Iran's nuclear, missile, and drone programs, while Tehran is demanding an end to the blockade, the lifting of sanctions, and compensation. Between Washington's pressure, Tehran's conditions, and Gulf mediation efforts, the region is entering a more complex phase, with the consequences extending to Gulf security, energy supplies, trade, and global markets.
I am now delighted to be joined via Zoom by our KTV correspondent in London, Jamal Shaheen. Jamal, thank you for taking the time to join us here today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to dive right in, and as the conflict has reached the 6-month mark, from your standpoint, can you assess for us the developments that took place throughout that time?
Of course, 6 months on, the conflict has evolved from what we was initially expected to be a limited military confrontation into a much broader regional and international crisis, which becomes very bigger. The most significant development has been the impact on regional and security and the freedom of the navigation of the Strait of Hormuz, which have a huge negative impact in the world energy market. And we see the whole stock market till now, even after 6 months, they are not reached to the closer point on 28th of February. Till now, there is a huge impact in economy in the United Kingdom and in Europe, especially in energy. While we have all eyes now are focused on de-escalate and the diplomatic engagement to try to find a solution, especially for the Iranian nuclear program and regional security. And also one of the most important issues still unclear and affects the economy is the future of the Strait of Hormuz. This is one of the most major points. We are keep eye on it. This is one of the most important issues. But also, if we look to a wider perspective, the conflict has been demonstrated that military pressure alone has not produced any political outcome. So we have to go back to the negotiation, especially we see what we can see now is the increasing diplomatic effort, which countries such as Pakistan, Qatar, and Oman playing an important part to try to find a solution, and many other countries. This is very unexpected crisis, which have a huge impact in the world economy, and it might be at least take for another 6 months to recover and back to normality again, if we have a peace solution now.
Now, speaking of diplomatic efforts as they come in many shapes, forms, and sizes, Kuwait's foreign minister held a phone call with his UK counterpart yesterday, actually, to discuss bilateral relations and the current regional developments. Can you give us further details on that call?
Yes, this is one of the most important call. If we take to the account, the Kuwaiti government have a deep-rooted relationship with United Kingdom, and also not in economy, but sorry, in political, but in economy. One of the most important issues is Kuwait. Kuwait doing like nearly 40% of jet fuel for the United Kingdom, which has a negative impact. So and also Kuwait have a major part to playing in stability and securing peace in the Middle East and the region as well. So this is the call between Kuwaiti Foreign Minister Sheikh Jarrah al-Sabah and the Foreign Secretary Ed Miliband came at very sensitive moment not for the Gulf but also for the United Kingdom and the world. The discussion focus on bilateral relationship, regional development, and the effort to strengthen the security and the stability for Kuwait and GCC country, and also for the global energy market, and also for the protection and the freedom of the navigation at the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, they also talk about the regional issue like anything is in the Middle East, especially the Strait of Hormuz, and the importance of find a route and find final peace and back to normality for the Strait of Hormuz, and also deepening the relationship between UK and the United Kingdom.
Another major political encounter is also Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammad Ishaq Dar and British Foreign Secretary Ed Miliband that held talks in London also yesterday. What can you tell us about that meeting, especially in regards to the crisis in the Middle East?
This meeting is one of the most important meetings. This is a significant because it brought together two countries that have increasingly important and diplomatic role in the current regional crisis. The Middle East was among the key issues. Dr. Dar briefing Mr. Miliband about the diplomatic and the mediation effort which Pakistan tried to find a solution, and they have a full support from United Kingdom just to de-escalate the situation. This is one of, as we know, as all of us know, Pakistan have a major part in try to reach the memorandum of understanding, and still work on to find a solution to back to the table again and find a diplomatic solution, which have a huge support from the British government.
How is London's support for the expanded US sanctions on Iran interpreted within the context of economic pressure? Does this indicate a broader European trend toward aligning with Washington?
We have to understand from the beginning, yes, the United Kingdom and EU countries have a sanction against many Iranian organizations and many Iranian personnel. Even now, they expand the sanction against some organization have a good connection with Revolutionary Guard, and also there is a huge demand to put or to list Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization. But we have also to understand the United Kingdom is not involved in any military blockade to Iran. This is because they don't want any escalation. They try to work in de-escalation. But yes, the UK and France have initiative to try to find a solution for the Strait of Hormuz, but will be after the war will end. So I think, from my understanding, the United Kingdom is still in the same position, is still positioning itself in the same situation to de-escalate the situation, to defend its interest in the Middle East and defend its ally in GCC country, but not involved in any war or dragged to any war.
So diplomatically, why has the European role diminished at the mediation table between Washington and Tehran?
Okay, this is because one of the most important issues that EU and the United States is not in a good contact like before. How we can understand this? 2 days ago, the CIA director has traveled to Moscow and they met with many senior officials in Moscow without any information or knowledge to their counterparts in EU. There is a huge discussion between EU and also NATO countries and the United States about the military spending. In the same time, there is still a big disagreement or a different view between the United States and the EU about Ukraine. The EU countries still believe there should be a military checkpoint and the United States should share and take part on this. And also Russia refused. And they also want a multinational peace force to be deployed in Ukraine, which is not supported by United States and Russia. So, and also many discussion and many think tanks believe that Europe in the next 50 years should rely into itself in defending and the economy, and because it might be United States to be more pragmatic and take a side with China and Russia and not still the same. So I think the EU and the United States in short term, yes, they are with each other. In medium term, in longer term, also they are with each other in some point. But in relation to Russia and China, there is still big difference between them.
Moving on, Jamal, the Royal Navy's UK maritime trade operations reported a projectile attack yesterday in the Strait of Hormuz. What are the latest efforts from the UK regarding the strait? I know you had stated earlier that the efforts are there and they are to be further activated or actually activated upon finding a peace deal. But what are the latest efforts?
It is still the same. They are sending more. They send already some more troops. The highest level of fighter airjet from Tornado and F-35 is the highest number since 15 years. It's already there. But since the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is on board, there is nothing different between what's happened during Keir Starmer and now. Yes, he's still pushing for more engagement. He's still pushing for more cooperation with GCC country, but he still believes this is not the war of United Kingdom, and they still worry about if they take any military action, will be more escalation, which again is what United Kingdom believe.
Lastly, Jamal, how has the UK economy fared during the 6 months period since the start of the conflict up until today?
I would describe the UK economy as a resilient, but it's very vulnerable to what's happened. One of the most very too simple example, the energy and electricity bill has risen twice. One in July with 13%, and also one will be in next October 4%. The only reason for this is the tension around the globe and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which have a huge negative impact in the economy. What this means, will mean a new and a higher of interest rate, a new higher cost of living, and also will impact the growth of the UK economy.
Our KTV correspondent in London, Jamal Shaheen, thank you once again for your time and input. Moving on, dear viewers, the U.S. military said American forces had cleared sea mines from the Strait of Hormuz that were laid at the start of the conflict. U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly said the strait was open, but many vessels have opted against sailing through it because of Iranian threats, and ship tracking services have estimated activity at roughly 5% to 15% of normal volumes. This report has further details.
The U.S. military's Central Command said that internationally recognized shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz are open after American forces cleared sea mines from the waterway. Commander Admiral Brad Cooper said U.S. forces used Navy divers, Navy SEALs, and aircraft from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps to clear the lanes. He said U.S. forces assisted nearly 1,500 commercial vessels in transiting the strait in the last several months, carrying nearly 750 million barrels of crude oil to global markets. Cooper also said that since the U.S. resumed its naval blockade in July, no ships had entered or left Iranian ports without American permission, except for vessels allowed to pass on humanitarian grounds. He said the U.S. turned around 75 vessels attempting to run the blockade and disabled 3 that did not comply with directions.
Hi, I'm Admiral Brad Cooper, Commander of U.S. Central Command, here with an operational update. As recently announced, the U.S. military has achieved a major milestone in the Strait of Hormuz. We have successfully cleared sea mines in the Strait's international shipping lanes that were laid months ago by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard. The circumstances were challenging and dangerous to say the least, but we got the job done. Bottom line, today, international shipping lanes are open and momentum is building. CENTCOM forces have demonstrated time and time again that we are laser focused on this mission. We remain vigilant, lethal, and resolved.
The Strait of Hormuz is a major international shipping route connecting the Arabian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. Mediators have placed renewed emphasis on reopening the Strait of Hormuz, with Tehran agreeing to draw up a list of conditions to restore normal traffic after Qatari efforts pressed the Iranians to respect freedom of navigation. Earlier on Wednesday, sources said that Iran and Oman were still working on details of an agreement on the waterway. Yesterday, the UK Maritime Trade Operations Centre said that a tanker was hit by an unknown projectile in the Strait of Hormuz, causing a fire that has since been extinguished. The centre said that all crew are reported as safe and accounted for, and there has been no report of environmental impact, while authorities are investigating the circumstances surrounding the attack. The UK Maritime Trade Operations advised vessels operating in the area to transit with caution and report any suspicious activity.
As for the stance of the United Nations, Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed concern that new measures or inflammatory rhetoric could escalate tensions linked to the Iran crisis and urged all sides to pursue a political solution.
The assessment is that this conflict, even in somewhat of a frozen kinetic phase, continues to do a lot of harm to the region, continues to do a lot of harm to the global economy. I think that the Secretary General is concerned about any new measures, any additional rhetoric that we see that could lead to an escalation. And we're continuing to see disruptions in the flow of energy, disruption in the flow of food. The only way to reach a durable settlement is through dialogue. And the Secretary General is very much appreciative of the mediation efforts by Qatar, by Egypt, by Pakistan, of course, and others who are doing their best to try to lead to a political solution, which frankly there's no getting around that to settle the situation.
Dear viewers, you are still tuned into our daily special live coverage, and we have this upcoming report on global oil prices that continue to feel the effects of the conflict amid stalled peace talks and uncertainty in the Strait of Hormuz.
Oil prices fell on Friday and are on track to snap a two-week winning streak, despite settling higher in the previous session, following a report that U.S. President Donald Trump is not interested in returning to previous deal terms with Iran. Brent crude futures were down 25 cents, or 0.3%, to $89.45 a barrel, while the West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 22 cents, also 0.3%, to $83.31 a barrel. Both benchmarks were poised to end the week lower, with Brent down 5.3% and WTI falling 4.3%. Qatar and Kuwait have managed to boost their crude oil exports from the Strait of Hormuz to 70% of pre-war levels, as they followed the United Arab Emirates in shuttling oil through the choke point and using ship-to-ship transfers in the Gulf of Oman. Asia's imports of crude oil in August are still well short of levels prior to the start of the conflict. The top importing continent is expected to see arrivals of 23.12 million barrels per day in August, slightly down from July's 23.36 million barrels per day. The still weak arrivals of crude at Asian ports challenge claims by U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright that flows through the Strait of Hormuz are rising and that total oil exports from the Middle East are nearly back to pre-conflict levels. Citing people familiar with the matter, the Wall Street Journal reported that the Trump administration has repeatedly told mediators that he has no interest in reviving the Joint Memorandum of Understanding, complicating diplomatic efforts to restart the talks. Earlier on Thursday, Washington said it was not in talks with Iran, despite diplomatic efforts by other countries to re-engage the two sides.
Welcome back, dear viewers. I am now pleased to welcome via Zoom from Washington political analyst Dr. Aziz Fahmy. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
As I had mentioned earlier, the conflict has regretfully reached the 6-month mark. How do you assess the developments of the conflict during that time?
The conflict went through many phases. Started with a major military attack against Iran, and the Ayatollah and his top 8 were killed. But after that, I think Iran was able to hold up and to continue resisting and exchange fire. And then we had this agreement, but did not hold. And then soon after, we went back to exchange fire because of the conflict over the interpretation of the agreement and whether the agreement really give Iran sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. And we went back to war, but now the war stopped, and the President Trump decided that he will have to try economic pressure. And now he has a new policy by which that he would not allow any country to cooperate and to trade with Iran. And if any country does continue trading and cooperating with Iran, it will be subject to major economic sanctions from the US. And until now, it's really not clear how successful this strategy will work.
Would you say that since the beginning of the conflict, the outcomes of the conflict are somewhat unpredictable since the beginning of it? If you and our dear viewers can recall, the U.S. president and the administration had been saying when the war started that it would take a few days, and then it turned into a few weeks, and then they would say no, of course it wouldn't reach the 3-month mark, and it reached it quite easily. And now we're at the 6-month mark, and everyone, political, economic analysts, everyone is worried about the outcomes of the conflict. It already reached the 6-month mark. How long would it take for clear, tangible signs of the conflict dissipating? And as President Trump launched an economic war on Tehran this past week, is that a sign that the U.S. is taking a different strategy in this conflict now? And do you believe that this strategy will be successful?
Well, that's what I was just trying to explain. There has been a major shift in the American strategy from military to economic pressure and isolation of Iran, economically cut off Iran from trade with the rest of the world. Whether this will succeed or not, we still don't know, because there is a big hole in this strategy, which is China. China is the major purchaser of the Iranian oil. And so over the year, Iran and China were like, allies. And so they went through the economic sanctions that the United States imposed on Iran, and they found some ways of turning around it to continue trading and getting the Iranian oil around the economic sanctions of the United States. So now when the president announced this new strategy, it's still very not clear how he is going to handle China. And there was a press conference like 2 days ago, and he refused to answer the question why you did not include the big Chinese banks who we know that they are trading with Iran. And, the president got really annoyed and he said, I don't have to tell you everything that I do. And so I don't have to do everything publicly, which implies, I'm doing some, but secretly. But, it was not satisfactory to the media. So there is, without the China angle or, portion of the trade with Iran, the success of this new strategy is in doubt. So, but we really don't know. There are some things can happen in the background, and we don't know about it yet. But there is doubt.
So one could say that our cautious optimism is somewhat fatigued due to the statements of the US president. And like you stated in the news conference where he said, I don't have to tell you everything or I don't have to announce everything to the media. Is that a well-calculated approach, especially as the elections are looming in?
You're talking about American parliamentary elections,
Yes.
Congressional elections. Yes, absolutely, you're right. First of all, the irony of this statement that I don't have to tell everything to the media is really not Trump way, because Trump used to tell the media everything and more than needed, and bragging about what he is doing and what's the effect of what he's doing will be and so forth. So now all of a sudden there is silence and there is not declaring anything about what he's going to do with China. And the president of China is coming to the US in 1 month. So I don't think that the United States want to muddle the water between China and the United States before the visit. So maybe that's why there is maybe some delicate discussion. Maybe there are some secret movement. They are not going to announce it now, but it might be announced later. All this is a possibility. But if China is not included, this will really put in doubt the whole strategy of isolating Iran, because the most important purchaser of Iranian oil and oil products is China.
Speaking at least of the announcement that President Trump did make, he announced that a new warship will arrive in the Middle East after claiming very big victory over Tehran, while adding that he is not in a hurry to end the conflict. Do you see the arrival of a new warship, even though it is to replace a previous one? Do you see it as a sign that the U.S. might resume strikes, or is it just another pressure tactic?
No, it's, President Trump used his mega microphone as a very important portion of his pressuring mechanism. The new aircraft carrier coming to the region, it's simply replacing the one that there was a lot of talk about it, that the sailors complained that they have been way too long in the overseas, and they were supposed to be only for limited time on duty, and then they would be able to go back home and see their families and so forth. So there was a lot of talk about this, a lot of controversy about over this. So, I look at it simply by, there's the one that they were talking about, the controversy about, has left, and the replacement is arriving. But of course, Trump used this occasion to, bolster his, military force and the fact that he defeated Iran. And he has been saying he defeated Iran already. There is no aircraft, Air Force left. There is no Navy left. And but Iran continued to, launch missiles. And the Iranian missiles are very cheap and produced locally, while the American weaponry to counter this Iranian missile is extremely expensive, very high, sophisticated weaponry. And so the financial equation of attack and defense is really not not economic. And as a result, there has been complaint within the army ranks that we have spent so much time of the very sophisticated weapon that to target the Iranian missiles, to the point that the stock in the army has been reduced to a critical level. And so, the end result of this shift in strategy, we are going to go to economic pressure, and we are no longer hit Iran, and we are not talking to Iran. That's the new strategy of the United States. We are not talking to Iran. We will not talk to Iran. We don't need to negotiate with Iran. We will not go back to the June agreement. And we will use the economic pressure to break Iran. And let's see how this new strategy will fare out.
The timeline of these steps, actually, I was wondering, they started with the war, with aggression, with military force, and then they reverted into the economic aspect of it. Was it possible to do it the other way around? Would doing it the other way around have shortened the period? Possibly.
Well, that's a very good question. But in the beginning, as you said in your intro, the understanding of President Trump and his top aides and Israel that this will be a few days. So why I would go through economic pressure that takes long time? The military option is more decisive and more quickly, but they did not anticipate that Iran will still be standing 6 months later, launching missiles and, hit by hit, hit against hit, hit against hit. So, this was a surprise. I mean, even President Trump said himself that he was surprised of the long-standing of the Iranian army. So that's why they never started the economic measure first. Plus, Iran has been under American sanctions for like decades. So, it seemed that, Iran was able to survive the economic sanctions and was able to continue trading with a lot of partners. And so that's why the military option sounds like very, very attractive. But now it turned out to be not that attractive. So, that's where we are stuck now, especially that the American election is coming closer and closer. And many Republicans now are turning against this policy because, they said to Trump, we supported you because you raised the slogan, America first. But now it looked like Israel is first. It's not America is first. Every day now Trump repeats and repeats over and over that we did this war to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons, because if they do, there will be no more Israel. Israel will be done, and the Iranian will use nuclear capabilities against Israel, and that Israel will not be able to sustain. And this argument is really very strange, because Israel has 200 nuclear bombs. So if Iran launched at Israel one nuclear bomb, Israel would be able to respond and would be able to literally erase Iran from the map because of the 200 nuclear bomb that Israel has. But it is a secret. Nobody knows. And Israel never confirmed that they had a nuclear bomb. But the argument that the President Trump is making, I think Israel is like biting its nails that this is not true. Iran cannot completely destroy Israel because we would be capable of responding. But the policy is we don't deny or confirm that we have nuclear capabilities. And that's why they don't say anything. But I'm sure they are very unhappy because of repeated Trump statements.
Now, Dr. Aziz, I want to ask you, Qatar's Prime Minister visited Tehran actually in efforts to revive those stalled peace talks. Do you see the two sides returning to the negotiating table soon, even despite those economic sanctions and the economic pressure? And what do you think needs to happen for them to actually resume talks and have finally that political approach and political dialogue?
We are not anywhere close to going back to negotiations. I mean, that's what the president said. He said that we are not talking to Iran. We are not interested in talking to Iran. And the foreign minister of the United States just announced to the allies that the American policy right now is no military strikes, continue the naval blockade, strengthening it, and try to pass as much oil through the Gulf as possible, because that is the way they want to take this card from the hands of Iran. So they are using force to protect the carrier of oil oil tanker, sorry, to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And there was, just like an hour ago, Axios made, a statement referring to what two American officials said, that right now there is so much oil are passing through the Strait of Hormuz, and that Iran is no longer hitting all of them. So they say that Iran is only targeting 2% of the oil tankers that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. And the American explanation is, that's actually what the president said, that they don't want to hit everything because they don't want us, the United States, to respond in kind. So as if there was, Iran is hitting so little of the oil tankers, so not to accelerate or to cause American response. And that's why now the argument is that we are winning because we are allowing more oil to go through the Strait of Hormuz, which means that we are weak in the hands of Iran on the Strait of Hormuz.
Lastly, Dr. Aziz, in your expertise, how do you see the upcoming period playing out? I want to say next few days or weeks, but let's just say the upcoming period.
Well, upcoming period is a very, very good framing because we really don't know. Nobody knows. The Iranians are not going to surrender. And that's what the United States wants. President Trump keeps saying, I don't know why they did not surrender until now. They should raise the white flag and surrender, and this whole thing will be over. But Iran don't do it. And Iran is willing to fight until the last man standing. And President Trump did not really expect that they would be able to be standing all that time. So how long that would last, I don't know. Nobody knows. President Trump doesn't know. President Trump would like to get out today, actually yesterday, but he's not able to because he cannot declare victory that is in a way convincing to the rest of the world if he leaves like this when things are hanging, when Iran is still standing, when Iran refused to accept the American conditions. So when it will be over, who knows?
Indeed, and given the fact that we have no idea, sadly, all one can do is approach the upcoming period with cautious optimism. Political analyst Dr. Aziz Fahmy from Washington, thank you so much for your time and valuable input here. And dear viewers, as we come to the end of this special live coverage on Kuwait Television 2, we have examined the evolving regional situation from several important perspectives. Our gratitude once again for the guests who joined us throughout this coverage and shared their insight on the latest development regarding the crisis in the Middle East. Be sure to tune in again at 7 p.m. for the main news bulletin, where my colleague will bring you all the latest news from around the world. Take care.